All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back. You ready to like really dive deep today?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Awesome.
Uh,
So today we're going to be all about living a more fulfilling life, and to help us get there,
oh?
we are going to be looking at Present Over Perfect by Shauna Niequist.
Oh, fantastic book.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
have you read it?
I have. Yeah. It's a great one. Really resonated with me.
I'm so excited to talk about this one with you. I feel like
Yeah.
this is something that we all like struggle with, this idea of like
For sure.
always kind of striving for perfection.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Liquis just hits the nail on the head in terms of,
Yeah.
explaining why we feel so overwhelmed, why we feel burnt out, and really gives us a good path, I think, for how to kind of let go of that pressure to be perfect
Right.
and really embrace a simpler, more present way of living.
Yeah. She says, I think right at the
Hmm.
beginning of the book, like, it's not about
Yeah.
doing more, achieving more, being more. It's about like doing less, achieving less, and being less, but like in a good way, you
Yep.
know?
Exactly. Yeah, it's about kind of stripping away all of the unnecessary,
Yeah.
stuff and really focusing on what truly matters.
Exactly. And I think that's so powerful and
Yeah.
something I think that we can all like benefit from.
Definitely.
So one of the first things she talks about is this idea of like embracing imperfection,
Yeah, it's huge.
like getting real with ourselves and kind of like accepting our flaws and being okay with that.
Right, and I think she makes a really good point about how perfectionism often comes from this fear of being vulnerable.
Hmm.
Right, we're so afraid to let people see our flaws, but what
Right.
she argues is that actually when we do embrace those flaws, when we're authentically ourselves, that's when we actually build those deeper connections with other people because
Yeah.
we're not putting on this facade, we're just
Yeah.
being real, being genuine.
I love that. I think that's so important. And I think that's something that I personally struggled with for a long time
Yeah.
because I think, being in a creative field and being online so much,
Yeah, sure.
you kind of have this pressure to like present this like perfect image to the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, it's just not realistic. And I think that it really prevents you from like connecting with people in a genuine way.
Right, exactly. And it's exhausting, right? It's like you're constantly trying to keep up
Yes.
this image, this facade,
Yes.
and, eventually you just burn out.
You crash, you burn. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something that she talks a lot about too, is how
Mm.
that constant striving for perfection can really take
Yeah.
a toll on us and it can lead to burnout.
Yes. So then she also talks about kind of going along with this, the power of saying no, which,
Mm.
oh my gosh, I feel like this is one of the hardest things.
So hard, yeah.
Like we all like struggle with this, but it's so important.
It is, yeah. It's like we feel obligated to say yes to, every request,
Yes.
every invitation, every opportunity, even when we are already stretched so thin.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
And she really encourages us to look at our commitments and ask ourselves okay, are these commitments truly aligned with my values, with my priorities? And
Mhm.
if they're not, then she encourages us to, politely decline and create space for
Yeah.
those things that really matter.
Yes. And she has a great anecdote in the book, I think, about,
Yeah.
she had agreed to go to this social event and then she realized like, no, what I really need
Yeah.
is some quiet time with my daughter.
Yeah.
And so she canceled her plans and just spent that time with her daughter.
Yeah.
And it turned into like this really special evening for them. And it's just like,
Yeah.
it's such a great reminder that sometimes the most fulfilling things are just,
Mm.
the simple things that we create when we say no to the things that aren't really that important.
Absolutely. And it ties in really well with the importance of stillness, in a
Yes.
world that's constantly demanding our attention, our time, our energy.
Mm.
It's so hard to carve out those moments of quiet reflection,
Hmm.
but she argues that it's absolutely essential for our well-being.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there for a second
Okay.
because like I totally agree with you, but this is where I get stuck.
Okay.
Like I know it's important, but like how do we actually do that? Like how do we actually
Right.
like carve out the time in our busy lives to actually find that stillness?
Well, and she gives some really practical tips in the book, which is great.
Okay.
She talks about the benefits of meditation, mindfulness practices, even if it's just, 5 minutes a day.
Okay.
She has a whole chapter on the power of spending time in nature.
Hmm.
And she also encourages us to just find the little pockets of stillness throughout the day.
Okay.
Maybe it's just taking a few deep breaths before a meeting or,
Mhm.
enjoying a cup of tea in silence.
Okay, so it's not about like having to go away on like a silent retreat for a weekend, you know.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
like incorporating little things into our everyday lives.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love that. I think that's really helpful. For me, I find that even like a short walk in nature,
Oh, for sure.
can really help me just like reset and, reconnect with myself.
Yeah.
What about you? Do you have any sort
Yeah.
of like go-to practices for finding stillness?
For me, it's early morning walks with my dog. It's
Oh.
a chance to like clear my head, breathe in the fresh air,
Yeah.
before the day's craziness starts.
Yeah, just be present in that moment.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that. And so speaking of, simple things, she also talks about the importance of prioritizing relationships, which like, duh, that seems obvious,
Right.
but it's so easy to let those slip, I think, when you get
It is.
caught up in the craziness of life.
Yeah, absolutely. But she really reminds us that, at the end of the day, relationships are really the foundation of a fulfilling life. Investing time in our loved ones,
Mm-hmm.
nurturing those bonds, creating shared experiences.
Mm.
Those are really essential for our well-being. And, it's not about
Yeah,
like the grand gestures. It's really about these everyday moments of connection.
right.
Like sharing a meal together, having a meaningful conversation,
Yes.
or even just being present with each other.
Yes. She has a really nice story in the book about, I think it's like a family dinner, and it turns into
Oh, yeah.
this like really beautiful moment of connection.
Yeah.
And it was just like, it wasn't anything fancy. It was just like a simple dinner, but they were all so present with each other and so engaged with each other. And
Yeah.
it turned into like this really cherished memory.
Right.
And it's just a good reminder that, the simple things can be so powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of the last things she talks about is this idea of redefining success,
Yeah, this is so important.
which I think is, again, something we all struggle with.
Yeah.
So often we define success
Yeah.
based on these external markers like,
Yeah.
achievements and possessions and status.
Right.
And, she's arguing that like, no, we need to shift our focus to like internal fulfillment.
Yeah, like what truly brings us joy.
Yes.
Right. Because so often we get caught up in that external validation game and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you achieve a goal,
Yeah.
you reach a milestone, and then it's like, okay, what's next? You're
Yeah.
never really content, you're never really satisfied.
And it can leave you feeling so empty, like what's the point?
Exactly.
If you're just constantly striving for the next thing and never like
Yeah.
taking the time to appreciate, what you've done or where you are.
Right. And she argues that, true fulfillment comes from aligning our lives with our values and finding joy in the journey, not just the destination. It's about asking ourselves what truly matters to us and then
Yeah.
making choices that reflect those priorities. Maybe it's pursuing a passion project. Maybe it's spending more time with loved ones.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's just slowing down and appreciating the present moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a great reminder for all of us, because I think it's so easy to like get caught up in this like
Yeah.
hustle culture,
Really?
It's like you got to be constantly working and achieving and producing and,
Right.
and it's not sustainable.
It's not. And, it can really lead to burnout. It can lead to, just this feeling of emptiness and dissatisfaction.
Yeah. So if we had to like distill everything we've learned from this book into like one message, it would be slow down, prioritize what truly matters, and live a life that reflects your values. It's about choosing presence over perfection, connection over achievement, and joy over obligation.
I love that.
Right. So to leave you with one final thought, if you could let go of one thing
Okay.
that's keeping you from living in the present moment, what would it be?
That's a good one.
Yeah. Would it be the fear of failure, the need to please others, the pressure to be perfect? What would it take to release that and just like embrace a more present, fulfilling life?
That's a great question. I'm going to be thinking about that one.
I know, me too. So much food for thought. So we highly recommend checking out Present Over Perfect.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It's a really great book, really thought-provoking. So that's it for today. Until next time, keep diving.
Keep diving.